7 o'clock, or 7 o'clock. We'll call the April 10th meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the meeting, I guess I saw Wakefield's daughter trying to teach Haley how to knuckleball. She'll teach you how to be governor, too.
Don't ask for too much.
I know. All righty. It's been a while, I might be new with this. Approval for minutes for March 27th.
I read them, I didn't see anything that I would wish to edit or find.
Okay.
So there's no objections, I'll move that we accept them.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. COC for NACC 24505 Sutton Street. Request to continue to April 24th.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1834, 35 Hollow Tree Lane.
Alrighty. This order was issued in January of 2022 and it governed replacement of a failed septic system at the front of the house. Later in November 2022, the order was modified, allowing the demolition of a previously existing rear deck and stairs and construction of a new screened-in porch with a deck and stairs. A waiver was granted for a part of this work that was within the 50. The house was built so that some of these structures were in the 50 when it was built. So the previously existing deck encroached into the 50-foot no-build by about 120 square feet. The new structures proposed were to encroach 118 square feet, but actually it was built that only 101 square feet is in the 50. So it's an overall decrease from historic and proposed, and a bit further away from the wetlands than previously proposed. There was removal of disturbance within the 25 that was required, and restoration planting was installed. Work is complete, site is stable, wetland markers are installed. The plants are doing well. Board of Health has issued their COC for the system. I did visit the site yesterday and found no outstanding issues and recommend issuing a full and complete certificate with ongoing conditions.
Thank you. Jack, any questions?
It's a minor point, but in the letter from Mr. Richard Williams, PD,
Yep.
He states that the existing conditions appear to be in substantial compliance. I think our standard is higher than that, isn't it? I mean, isn't he stating it is in substantial compliance? Shouldn't he be saying that instead of appear to be?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
It's kind of like a
Yeah.
cover language.
Is that like kind of sort of?
So yes, it's weasel words, but we all do it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be a straightforward project, and you've been on the ground recently.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable with approving it. It's just, seems a little weak. But
Yeah.
that's only my opinion. I'm all set.
Okay.
Yeah, Joe?
I had no questions until Jack just raised that.
Oh, dear.
On the certification letter, don't we also require that it be stamped as well as the as-built?
Good question.
As built to stand.
Because it's
At
to that,
least
it's to
signed.
that point of choosing the words. If the stamp was there, it kind of makes those words almost not matter.
Yeah.
I thought we typically required certification by.
Yeah, it has to be stamped in. This was not This isn't the as-built, Joe?
No, it says a written statement from a registered PE or PLS of the Commonwealth certifying that the work has been conducted as shown on the plans and documents referenced above.
Work
And
has
as-
been completed.
I think it falls short of the requirement. I mean, again,
No.
it's pretty minor. Your inspection supports his letter. The as-built shows the facts, and it is stamped. But I think that, I don't want to erode what the order conditions say. We just probably should be more careful when we accept their letters. But I have no issue with the project.
So it just says a written statement,
Certifying is the word.
certifying.
That is not in here whatsoever. Appears to be substantially in
I
compliance.
getcha, okay.
It does not certify anything. So again, it's, I think on this one, I'm not gonna make anything out of it, but I think we gotta be careful to not let that requirement of our condition erode away.
Okay,
I'm all set.
Thank you. Al?
No questions.
Brad?
I guess maybe I should change my wording in the future. I have no other further
This is
questions.
a battle.
Only here.
This is a battle of the engineers, so I'm gonna stay out of this battle.
Verbiage.
I'm still gonna move it.
No question?
Yeah.
Motion, please?
I move that we grant the certificate of compliance for 242 1834 with ongoing conditions.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1848, 463 Winter Street.
all right. They have requested a continuance to the April 24th meeting. Our schedules didn't jive to get out there to do a site visit, so we'll do that for the next time.
Continue?
Yep.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. I was wondering why I didn't have a packet for that one.
Yeah.
That's a clue.
Small project, 323-69 Milk Street.
All right, let's see. All right. Yeah, you can come on up. I'll give a blurb and, so this is a small project, category A, for decks with no roofs. There is an existing rear deck and stairs that would be refurbished and expanded. The scope includes removing the existing deck boards and railings from the existing deck and installing new composite decking. Frame the new deck extension, which is 4 by 20, as called out on the plans. Install 4 new 10-foot footings to support the expansion, and install a new concrete pad for the stairs landing. Based on my on-site inspection, the deck expansion will be 57 feet from the edge of the wetland. And that's it in a nutshell. We do have the contractor with us this evening if you have questions, but I would recommend finding this to qualify under category A and issuing a small project with special conditions that require erosion controls to be installed and a pre-construction meeting with the Conservation Department. Any excess excavated soil shall be taken off-site or utilized on the site that is farther than 25 feet from the wetland, and a post-construction site inspection to verify compliance and improve removal of erosion controls.
Thank you. Jack?
I have no questions on this one.
Joe?
No questions.
Al?
I'm good.
Just must be a typo. You inspected by the construction department?
Oh, conservation.
Okay.
Did I say
branching out.
construction?
Here we go.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, in projects like this, does the building inspector go out there at all first?
First, I don't know.
Blast or?
Putting inspection.
It's footing inspection. I don't,
We talked about before.
Oh.
About, structurally.
Right.
Somebody said, "Oh, I'm just gonna do the deck over, I'm gonna do this."
right.
I think the building inspector should go out first, because they come before us with a small project,
Mm-hmm.
saying they're gonna just redeck it. And the substructure is garbage,
Right,
which would require more excavation.
right.
So,
So I
Well,
assume that.
we're gonna be putting composite decking, so we're gonna be beefing up the joist, and we're gonna be doing any necessary support. We're gonna be putting a couple cross beams.
so what you're saying, the stringers and everything gonna be changed?
No, the stringers aren't going to be changed. Everything is structurally good. We're going to be just beefing it up. We're going to be sistering the existing.
Very good. Brad?
What's that?
Okay.
And I assume that what's underneath the deck is just going to stay as is, you're not going to...
We're not gonna touch
Because
anything
there's
below.
like a vine, or like a landscaping vine that's growing in there. You won't be...
We weren't going to be touching any of that stuff.
Okay.
No.
All right, that's good.
Good.
All right. Can I just have your name for the record?
Clinton?
Clinton.
Galvin.
Oh, okay, Clinton.
Yep.
All
We've
right.
spoken but not met.
Okay.
So we're good?
Yeah. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we find the project to qualify under category A as a small project.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Accordingly, Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue the permit as posted in the recommendations.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
great, thanks.
Thank you. Next one is, INRAD for 242, no number, for 492 Sutton Street.
Do we have Railway Tavern first?
RDA.
RDA?
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I missed one, I did miss one.
RDA.
60 Wally Tavern, Lane. Sorry about that, Jack.
You were trying to skip me.
I just thought you wanted to
Saw
enjoy
you
the,
sitting there.
I just figured you wanted to enjoy the show for the evening.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty. Okay. So this project involves expanding an existing rear sunroom porch with an attached 14 by 23 sunroom with stairs and a 4x4 landing on the north side. The new sunroom will be supported by 3 Bigfoot footings and will receive an 18 by 18 crushed stone drip edge to capture roof runoff. The new sunroom will be 85 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland. I inspected the wetland line, it's accurate, it's just beyond the existing stone wall, and it's topographically controlled. There is a stockpile area that's shown on the plan outside the buffer zone, and construction access will need to protect the path between the septic tank and the leach field, but the engineer had noted that they don't expect any heavy equipment for this project. Jack Sullivan, the engineer, is with us this evening. If you have any questions, if you want my recommendations, I'll give them now,
Thank you.
or do you want to wait? Want them
Jack?
now? Okay, so I just would recommend closing the hearing and issuing a negative number 3 determination with special conditions that require installation of erosion controls and a pre-construction meeting with the Conservation Department and the contractor. Any excess excavated soils from the footing shall be taken off-site or utilized greater than 25 feet from the wetland, and a post-construction site inspection scheduled to verify compliance and approve removal of erosion controls.
Thank you. Jack, any
Yeah,
questions?
this project has great setbacks, and it seems to be planned very well, but it's gotta be executed as planned, because you are right, snipping the side of the leach field and the septic tank, and if it doesn't go as planned, Amy's gotta get, Amy and Justine have to get involved, because this construction access is tenuous. And, you know, as long as you stay inside of that erosion control, you're gonna be good, but I don't know, any deviation from that, I don't know how we enforce that, but maybe put a condition that they alert us if the construction access path is modified in any way. You know, it's still quite set back from the wetlands, but it
Yeah.
looks like there may be some tree impacts if they have to go around the other way, around that leaching field. So
Oh, yeah.
that would be worth an inspection, or
Yep.
it would be worth monitoring by our staff. That's all I have. I think it's very approvable.
Just to add to what you said, Jack, for the record, Jack Sullivan, Sullivan Engineering Group.
Around the septic, it's an elevated field, and I wanted to put the erosion control on just so everyone was aware that there's a septic tank and a field, and I wanted the contractor to take some caution. More, and I know you guys like to see the access route too.
Yes.
So they're going to have to follow this, and it's just 3 big footings. And just so the commission knows, and some of you may remember, back in 2011, there was a notice of intent on this project for the in-ground pool and patio out back. And so there has been a history of some work on this project. So that's why I wanted to show the construction access has to come across the front yard. And there'll be no soil stockpiling, so they will have to follow, and they'll be able to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good practice that, that you have to put the erosion control up, clearly define the limit of work, you know, for the contractors. And as long as it goes as planned, great. It is a positive thing that it is a raised leaching field, because that's easier to avoid. But anyway, I just stand with my initial comment that if it changes in any way, if that erosion control and therefore limit of work, if that changes in any way, it's got to be reviewed again.
Okay.
That's all I have, Lou.
Joe?
On that same point, it's all handwork. Those big footings can be likely hand dug.
Right.
No heavy machinery going in, but, you know, it's really just deliver the lumber. They're gonna, hoof it in from the front yard, or they're gonna back it in and lay it down, which is probably more likely. But it doesn't look too bad. The existing roof is framed probably with a pitch front to back. And you've got this new porch roof that it's a roof, correct? It's enclosed.
It's going to be a roof, and
Just below the eave, so the runoff, are the gutters on the back of the house?
No, and this new addition will be front to back as well. So the reason I continued the last meeting, the architect, I said, I have to know how this roof pitches so I can show the drip trench properly.
That's what I was gonna ask you, do we think that drip trench is adequate?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Far
Yeah,
enough
so
away, deep
I
enough?
wanted to see how it went, so that's why you see it on the back side of the roof. The pitch is the same as the existing house.
You don't really need a detail, the words speak for themselves, 18 by 18 wrapped,
Yep.
steel and stone, with filter fabric. I have no other questions.
Al?
No questions, all set.
Just a point of interest, Jack. Construction access, if the guy's backing in to go around, could be an issue. I would suggest extending the erosion control on the outside behind the septic tank, the septic leach field, so he can drive in and back up.
Okay,
And that'll eliminate that hard turn over the D box.
okay, that works.
Okay?
Yep.
Right?
Also,
Okay. Motion?
So to close the hearing and then issue a -3 with conditions.
That's my motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Now we have
IDA.
RDA for 492 Sutton Street.
Anrad, you mean?
I'm sorry, Anrad.
That's okay.
My mistake, Anrad.
So we have a request to continue to the April 24th meeting.
Right.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. I'll just get rid of all these continuances real quick. NOIs. 242-1878, 30 Ann Road. Request to continue to April 24th.
So, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. 242-1884, 49 Court Street. Request to continue to April 24th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1885, 216 Abbott Street. Request to continue to 424.
416. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Okay, so now we'll go back to NOI, 242, 1876, 492 Sutton Street.
Alrighty. Okay, so we have our applicant and representatives. We have our third-party peer review, Brendan Pyburn from Bobrick Engineering with us this evening as well. And we have a butter representation as well. So we've gone through 2 rounds of third-party peer review comment with Stantec's, the applicant's engineer responding in between. And we have also materials from a butter's engineer. So would you like for the applicant to start? Or how do you want to do this?
I just want to ask a question, because it'll affect what my opinion is.
Yep.
There's been contact between all the parties, right? All the parties have had contact. They've had a chance to review and.
Oh, yeah, everyone's,
They have.
yes,
all- from all
everyone's
bodies.
got
So
what
in
you
or-
got.
In order not to make this thing go all night.
Right, right.
I would suggest if there's agreement, then so noted. If there's disagreement, that's where we should be hearing.
Okay. Okay.
Because otherwise, we could be here for 3 days.
No, I get it.
And I don't intend to do that.
No, I know.
So I suspect, knowing the parties, knowing all the parties, and having seen them in front of this commission on numerous occasions, I suspect there's agreement more than disagreement. So that would be my suggestion. I don't know if you want.
By the numbers, by the scope, there's remains some broad disagreement.
My question is,
So let's hear that.
well, let's start with, I think we should start with, it's all the questions from our third-party review been answered.
Yes, Randy Christensen, representing Lawrence Airport, working with Stantec on the notice of intent and the design, and had very positive interaction with Bobrick since they were retained as the third-party consultant. It initiated with an initial letter and a conference call between the Stantec and Bobrick representatives, which then culminated in a site visit to inspect those points that there was additional clarity needed between the parties. And once that was done, Stantec delivered a response to Bobrick and the commission on their concerns. And then a final letter dated April 8th from Bobrick, basically substantial agreement on all issues except for 2. And so Commissioner Manzi hit the nail on the head in saying that you can cut to the chase. We did have substantial agreement. Bobrick made some comments that resulted in good, positive changes in the plans. So we have submitted a revised plan to reflect some of their comments, but the 2 impasse items are the ones that I think would result in most discussion tonight. I'd like to enumerate those for you, if I may.
Sure.
Those 2 items are, Amy, I think I'll have you put up
You want the,
that sheet, that C100, that is the aerial photograph that shows, in general, all the items. It was the slides that Dom sent you.
yeah,
Yes, now go down, probably 3rd slide in. One more.
one more?
Oops, sorry. It's a few more. Keep going,
Okay.
keep going, keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Huh. I thought he gave you an aerial photograph.
There was one right after the USGS map.
Okay, go back to the US. Yeah, go back to the USGS, sorry. Go back to the top.
All right,
Right there.
that one?
So this is the entire, this particular slide is the layout of the entire project, and it reflects some of the changes that were made to the project as a result of the third-party interaction with Stantec. And of note is you can see the extensive grading in the upland and the proposed fence relocation along the section of stream that we're not working on. So we have a section of stream that we have deemed adequate to remain in place between our formerly relocated stream in this particular project. And the reason being is that Bobrek believed that the roughness coefficient and just the general vegetation growth, sedimentation, and very diffuse nature of the flow through there, that it could pose a problem in the future. We not abandoned, but chose not to address that section of stream. Number one, we have over a year and a half of observations suggesting that this particular section is not an issue. But number two, we had some expediency needs here for this project in that there is downstream impacts that we wanted to address as immediately as possible. And adding this section of stream had significant permitting requirements. It elevated the project to a higher level of Army Corps of Engineers Section 404 participation, and it also got us into individual water quality certifications. Those of you who have dealt with those particular aspects of the Corps and the DEP water quality folks, you know it would add a minimum of 6 to 8 months to the project and considerable more effort. And I do believe we'd almost end up with a very similar project at the end of all that. It would take us out of this funding cycle and would eliminate this year as a potential construction year for this project. So the minimization aspect, and those of us in permitting, we talk about minimization, avoidance, and mitigation, with mitigation being last. First thing you're going to do is try to minimize your project to meet your project objectives. The difference or the impasse between what Bobrek has been saying and Stantec is saying is that we believe doing this section addresses that immediate objective that we have stated in the notice of intent, and that is preventing that overtopping for the critical storm events that we've listed in the notice of intent, and sends it downstream and gets it down to the Merrimack River eventually. They have noted, as have others, that the section that we're not addressing contains a lot of the same issues that the section we are addressing is. However, this one has more freeboard than the section we're addressing, and it's a straight section as opposed to the turn where the overtopping has been occurring. So we see differences here that allowed us to limit our work to just this approximately 200 linear foot section without adding that additional 150 or so feet of work and additional wetland impact to the project. As a compromise, what we proposed to Bobrek was this creation of this upland berm on the west side of the stream. It added additional freeboard to the actual flow channel or the storm flow channel without impacting the wetland boundary. It allowed us to add flow, positive flow characteristics to the stream without getting us into those other critical permitting scenarios that would put us off for another year and another funding cycle. And so this is an agree to disagree, in my opinion, or in Stantec's opinion, and the airport's opinion, is that we see the reason for the comments. They are positive ones. However, there are other issues involved which led us back to the project that you see before you now. The second impasse has to do with the water coming off I guess we've been referring to it as the neighborhood, but Poor Street, Grosvenor Avenue, from that area, kind of outside the airport boundaries and bypassing the airport stream channel and getting down to these downstream areas where all the problems have been occurring, somehow enveloping them and getting them into our channel. And so to reduce, it wouldn't eliminate, but reducing a lot of the flows that are going to downstream butters. We've looked at that, and we are very resistant to taking any more water into this channel than is absolutely necessary. It would require, we believe, work on property not belonging to the airport, quite possibly an actual residential property. But more importantly here, it again involves additional work in wetlands, which sends us to those other elevated permitting processes. And now we're starting to work in abutters properties. We're starting to take water from public residential streets, things of that nature. It greatly complicates things, but our engineer, the biggest concern is that the berm that we are creating at that corner of the stream that has been taking all the abuse, taking all the flows during these high flow events, we'd be making an insert into that berm where most of these forces are occurring, and we believe that weakens our whole structure. And so for that suite of reasons, this is the second impasse. we have to agree to disagree that we should, at least for this project and this notice of intent, look at additional measures of getting water through that berm, working on other properties, and trying to get those additional flows into the stream. I will say, and I want everyone to remember, that we have kind of put a net of core logs out upstream in our watershed to capture additional flows that we're getting off property, and those core logs are to remain. So some off-site flows or some additional flows have already been added to the stream. The airport is just not willing to go this extra step, which again would go another funding cycle. It would go additional permitting, and then we have the non-expenditure of FAA and public funds on off-site work. So any of the work that might occur on that residential property or on the public property would not be available for the type of funding that the airport receives for such projects. So these are the two impasses. Very good comments, very positive comments. They would make the project better. I don't think there's any refuting that, but these ancillary reasons for not including them are quite strong, and there is a time efficiency thing here, and we would like to go forward with the project as changed, as modified with the Bobrek comments, but would like to go forward with as shown on today's plans. Thanks.
Thank you. I just have I agree with you on the second part, about going on about his property and dealing with that shouldn't be the airport's responsibility to take care of the water problem of the whole area. I agree to that. The problem is that the other section that you kind of like would take new permitting and other, do you feel truthfully that should be addressed?
I feel that with the addition of this berm, that Bobrek's comments made us take a second look at it. It was a very positive comment. We kind of got tunnel vision because of all of our stormwater observations that we were making over the past year and a half. We kind of got tunnel vision at that one corner where some of the overtopping was observed. Their site inspection and their comments made us look a little bit harder at that area, and in doing so, we agreed that some additional freeboard would be necessary. We think that this berm addresses it without going through that extra permitting hassle, those extra wetland impacts. And so we think we've addressed it in doing this, and there's some disagreement that the berm is adequate by itself.
Okay, because to me, for me, I like to do things once. If you feel that we could always do this project as designed, and you could always go back for a modification to do the other project, but if you feel that it's not, you don't think we need it, and you've got these people almost agreeing with you, then I don't have an issue with that, but.
Modified stormwater analysis was done, given the freeboard that we've added with the berm that you see here, and we have more than addressed the model storm events that we're addressing this for, the 25-year, but showing the 100-year storm event, and we contain it with the design that you see before you. Now, the superstorm that we experienced quite recently here, I think exposed a lot of things in town that might be inadequate for storms exceeding the 100-year storm event. At what point are we going to stop?
Yeah,
So we all talk about the 25, the 50, and the 100. We do show and model those storm events with this berm in place, and the modeling shows that we can contain it. Now, the channel definitely could use somebody trimming vegetation and removing some sediment and things like that. I wish that there was some type of, Mass Wetlands Protection Act has some leniency there. Corps of Engineers really doesn't. It's all considered secondary impact. Once you have a primary impact, a primary wetland impact under Section 404, even trimming of vegetation at that point is considered a secondary impact. They lump it onto your totals, and again, we get elevated. We are straddling that self-verification, the assumed permit level right now, and it bumps us up into pre-construction notification permit, which has timelines associated with it. That would, again, eliminate this construction year. So, we were hoping that this upland work, which did add freeboard to the questionable section, was going to I guess, alleviate the concerns between Bobrick and us. And while there was some general agreement that it did, they still would like to see that channel cleaned. Channel's not perfect. Go see that section, but it is a straight section. And we are now have on both sides of it good flowing sections. So we think we're covered with that upland berm.
Okay, thank you.
Can we,
Yeah.
could we allow our third-party peer review just to speak, and then we can ask questions?
Sure.
Brendan, thanks, Brendan.
You know, I'm Brendan Pyburn with Bobrick Engineering and Construction. So yes, in general, I think we agree that the upland berm is certainly an improvement to the stream section. But as was just mentioned, we now have a good, clean flowing section upstream of this middle area that's not being addressed. And the concern is now we have a nice, smooth flowing channel, and it is going to be entering a not smooth channel. There's debris, there's growth, there's sediment buildup, like Stantec is mentioning. And the model shows the new upland berm, which is correct and accurate, and it certainly provides more freeboard, but the concern that we have that is still kind of ongoing is the cross-section of the channel doesn't accurately depict what is on site. It's in the model, it's a perfect trapezoid with no impediments to the flow. So what we're requesting is, at this time, to confirm that if we update the model to show a accurate channel bed with some of the mounding that is occurring out there with the sediment, some of the vegetation that is impacting the flow, which on site we visibly saw the water, which was after a very minor rainfall, was hitting some of these build-up areas, and in some cases diverting sideways, some reversing flow. So the concern is that if that channel is doing that on a minor rain event, although there's more freeboard, the model certainly backs up the comment that yes, it flows freely through that, but the channel cross-section doesn't exactly depict what is on site. And that is where our concern still lies. We agree with the upland berm is a certain improvement. Just want to confirm that that channel, as is currently, will be able to handle the new clean flow going through it.
Randy, do you have a comment?
So the storms that we're worried about, and as Brendan said, the lower storm events, they are coming in contact with that myriad of very close ground vegetation. What we're worried about is when the storm flows get about 2 feet in depth, even 3 feet in depth. At that elevation, it's only encountering the big sticks, right? The alder stems and things like that. It is not as impeded at those higher flows than it is in the minor storms, where it does have to follow that very diffuse nature at the lower level. And so, while I agree the roughness coefficient right down there at the bottom for the lesser storm events, definitely a rough one, which we like to see in our streams, obviously. For the other wetland values and functions and values, we like to see that. For particular stormwater flows, we like to see a nice, straight, clean, flat-bottomed, concrete, trapezoidal channel, which we know doesn't exist in nature very often. But as you get to those higher flow levels, you're not encountering that stuff down at the bottom. And it's my observations out there that those obstructions and everything are very close and low to the channel bottom itself. As you get into that freeboard that we're worried about, those 2 and 3 foot depths, you're not encountering nearly as much, if any, of those obstructions that we're seeing at the bottom of the channel. So while that roughness coefficient definitely plays with the numbers when you run it through the models, no doubt about it, I still believe that this freeboard that we're creating here with this mound and moving the fence and things like that, I think it's a good compromise without having to go through those additional permitting hassles. Now, I might hear Brendan saying that he just wants it proven through another model run with different channel configurations and prove that, you know, the excessive freeboard that we have over and above the 100-year storm event is still there if we run it with very much rougher coefficient of the channel or different configurations in the channel. If it comes out that with a rougher channel, the numbers still work in all of our favor here, that the 100-year storm event is still contained, it would seem then that the berm would be sufficient at that point?
I think within reason, sure.
Until I ask my questions.
So, okay. So, yeah, Pat, our stormwater engineer, who Brendan talked to several times and has been working with, I would have to have him run that additional set of numbers with that channel, just like it is now, but change the roughness coefficient and agree on a channel configuration that Bobrek agrees with, run the numbers, and again, if the 100-year storm event is passed, I do think we have a great compromise here without additional wetland impact.
Jack, any questions?
I'm going to defer to Joe.
Okay, Joe.
We switch sheets for a reason. I think this modeling is a quirk of a very narrow snapshot of time. I think what we have is an area that's flatter, prone to accumulation of silts and debris and die-off, and in an area where you're not allowed to maintain it because it's a brook. So I think even modeling it may prove out exactly what you guys may agree to prove out, is that in the lower flows, it's not causing a problem. In the higher flows, it gets high enough and it just gets above all that rough debris on the bottom and moves through freely. The reality is, over time, that's gonna get more filled in, more die-off, more stuff that's gonna be down in there catching more silt. And because we can't maintain it, whatever you analyze today is for a short window in the future. I hate to say it. This wasn't a problem before the runout area was expanded. This used to flow fine, and it doesn't anymore. So whether it's a permitting issue, or whether the Army Corps put you through the ringer, or causes an 8-month delay, there needs to be an acknowledgement that you need to maintain it, whatever the hell that means, because your model means nothing when sand and silt comes off areas around the perimeter. I don't think you use sand in the runways, right?
No.
No, but sand and silt come around the area, and all that vegetation starts dying off over time, and it gets incrementally more severe in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. We're just simply delaying the exact same conversation till the next time it fills in enough, and the berm is no longer sufficient. That's my take on this, is I think you've got a much bigger permitting problem than solving a modeling problem. That's my take on this.
I agree. One of our comments in general was that this project should entail, it wasn't originally submitted with an operation and maintenance plan for that exact reason. Because you can build it, but if you leave it and don't maintain it, it's going to fail.
And therein is the problem. So, I mean, whatever it is we can do to navigate around this, that needs to be maintained. I mean, you can't let a natural accumulation of debris get in there and defeat the channel over time. You just can't, because I mean, you certainly can, but the result is we're gonna have the exact same thing we have now, just a little further down the road. And maybe when those flows get higher and higher, that the actual impact becomes more catastrophic. And I'm speculating what that looks like, but I don't want to go there. So I think the modeling is not an intentional red herring, but I think we're trying to, use it to prove something that is only true in this very narrow snapshot of time. And that's all I have to say on that. I think we've got a long way to go from that comment that I just raised.
Yeah.
I have no questions at this time.
Well, like I said before, it's an issue that we have to address somehow. We can't just walk, just make off, it's not happening. And I agree with Joe. We're gonna give you the first foot, and then from there, forget it. But after a while, it's just gonna get, and it's gonna be almost like a sandbar. It's good. It's just gonna keep filling in. We're gonna have to address that problem again. So that's why I asked about doing the project that we have now, and at some point maybe making a modification to do that section. I don't know I'm not into permits and bureaucracy and all that, but
I don't know how you do
I
that.
think it's something that we should look at now versus later. Right? Brad, excuse me.
Which reach is this section model? Is it the 3R that you have circled in here, or is it the 5R, the 2 not 25?
Let's see,
It's the one immediately downstream from 2 plus 25. I want to say it's 2R
can see
off the
it.
top of my head. Because 2 plus 25 is the main project area.
that's, yeah.
And then it's the next one.
We actually have a good picture of 2 plus 25 as well.
I just wanted to see a cross-section of the thing. we say we're only worried about the bottoms, man, a lot of these look like we got some side slopes that we can worry about turbulent flow on as well.
Yeah, so 2 + 25 would be the critical cross-section.
That's the one we're looking at for now.
And if you look at 225, yeah, because we needed a massive, something that could take a hit. We didn't want to go any steeper than 3 to 1 side slopes, number one, which created a wider base. And because of the wider base, we had to move it further out from the wetland boundary, again, to try to minimize our wetland impacts. And so 2 + 25 is the model cross-section. That's where we see all the problems. And if you're going to take one cross-section and analyze it, that's the one that you would do.
Yeah, it does look like if you were to change the mannings on the side slopes, it would have a good effect on what you can put through that stream. But I guess I have more of a question of how it got here. In 2017, before this runway expansion, where did these neighborhoods drain to?
This
Look-
note, I'm gonna nip this in the bud right now. That runway safety area project, we had 6 acres of pavement reduction in this watershed. The stream that you see that was relocated added channel length, but the relocated channel has functioned
But my only concern now
fantastic.
is I see, I mean, where does the neighborhood drain to? Does it drain to that wetlands that's abutting? or
Yeah,
is
it drains to the wetland, which
Well,
all of a sudden culminate in one of these stream channels. Everything drains through this intermittent channel here, but there's two fingers of it as you get off the plan here.
I mean, I'm used to,
Can we go back to the other slide, the one that, the USGS slide? That probably shows it better.
That one
Okay.
shows it. So there's the main channel that you can see in the blue running up the side of the, kind of the taxiway.
I'm just isolating the wetlands. I mean, that's what we're doing by building the berm. We got a berm on one side of the channel, and then we're building the berm over there. So we're totally isolating that wetland from the stream. I'm just worried about what we could be exacerbating there, what the old drainage pattern was. Did it go to bigger wetlands that then outletted into the stream?
So this channel was a function of the airport construction back in the 40s. Landfills do, as airports do, they push all their drainage out to the outer perimeter, and
Yep.
you end up with urbanized streams, just like this one. We have one at the other end of the airport as well, at the runway 23 end. There's one very similar to it. So what we tried to do, again, with respect to the Wetlands Protection Act and the local wetlands bylaw, is that the channel flow obviously was front and center, our focus. However, the 3 to 1 slopes allow us to plant wetland vegetation as well, trying to establish or reestablish those other wetland functions and values that we didn't want to lose sight of along here, because this indeed is Wetlands Protection Act. And so we do still have a continuity of wetlands from that big red maple swamp all the way down through this section until you get to the culvert at the stormwater treatment plant. But let's face it, this red maple swamp that's up there in the neighborhoods is just a remnant. That whole neighborhood probably used to be a red maple swamp, or great portions of it. And so it's been encroached upon, and I guess you're dealing with the repercussions of that happening over time. I do think that there's been a slow accumulation of sediment and vegetation that has changed this cross-section, and we're now just seeing the result of it. I don't think it has anything to do with the runway safety area project, having been a part of that. I just think that this is the time where that channel cross-section has gotten to a point where there's just no freeboard in that bank anymore, and we want to reestablish that.
So do we screw up the relocation of the stream? Do we not account for
The
the right amount of
relocated
flows?
section, I don't believe so. The relocated section has never been a problem. It's stable. It's all completely revegetated, and it has really good shrub cover, root cover. This section that we're actually working in is not a part of the relocation at all. This is part of the remnants from the 1940s stream creation with the creation of the airport. So I don't know what to tell you, except that there's just not much freeboard at that problem section, and that is a function of sedimentation and vegetation growth.
So what do? We approve these subdivisions just to drain to the airport property undetained?
I mean, that goes back,
However long ago?
Oh, what,
Those
the
houses.
dead-end
Yeah, some of
streets?
these are
Yeah.
1920s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pre-subdivision
Those
control.
old,
There's only a couple of very recent subdivisions.
Yeah.
Much further down.
that's,
It
this
just
is
doesn't seem like
Matthews
terribly
Ways.
responsible development, which I would expect from the 1920s, to be clear.
Half of that development occurred prior to the airport, and then the other half of that development has occurred during the airport's life.
Well, at least everyone we can blame is all dead.
And it wasn't uncommon to have a wet basement back then.
No.
As of much of North Andover.
Times are changing. Okay. Yeah, I would very much like to see the storm run through that channel with the proper manning supply that you guys can agree on.
Yeah, be running through the roughness coefficients that we agree on and have that run the numbers and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that paired with a somewhat irregular channel cross-section, if we can make it custom in there, something that we agree on that is as close as we can get within HydroCAD. Otherwise, it's more of a HECRAS model, but that
Are
would
we in
be.
agreement on the contributing areas now? I know
Yeah,
there's
I
some.
think that's all.
Yep, there was some modifications made. I think something around the area of 40,000 square feet was added to a different location,
Okay.
based on our initial conversations.
All right, I have nothing else.
So I completely understand, I've been through Army Corps permitting, I understand how long it is. However, if it is the right thing to do for a project, it is the right thing to do for a project. Typically with like sedimentation issues like this, it's best to address them as far upstream as you can. It seems like none of that is being addressed by this. It's just kind of cleaning and fixing and dealing with it later. I think,
We do, as a component of this, we found some erosion scars up in the watershed, so separate from this, we are doing some bioengineering projects further up into the watershed to try to halt some additional sediment donation to this site. So that is a part of the notice of intent. That remains a part of the notice of intent, whatever happens here.
thank you for clarifying. That's great. I think, anything you can do to kind of stop it at the beginning is always very helpful. But I agree that I think the model should be rerun with irregular sections. I think, the HydroCAD section is ideal, and it's not that. It doesn't have that roughness coefficient. It doesn't have that same shape. It might be better suited to a HECRAS model, or different modeling software. HydroCAD has its limitations with this type of modeling, so.
Just a point of clarification, so Randy, you said upstream controls, or
Where
where you're talking where the,
where the culvert comes in.
Where the
we have
where the
some
huge
core
culvert
logs
comes
and
out.
some jute mesh
where that really
repairs.
bad erosion happened? Okay.
And there is one thing I wanted
Yeah.
to point out, we had discussed it months ago, and it's on this slide here, is you are doing some work up where it enters into the pipe system and diverts, and you could have some overflows that could be able to take in there.
Correct.
And, which is better than what we've had in the past.
This system will let us maintain this in the dry, so we would be able to turn this system back on, this diversion system, with proper notifications and things like that. Turn the diversion system back on would let us maintain this responsibly in the future, should something happen. So this system, when it's built with this project, could have long-term net positive effects for the long-term maintenance of this entire channel, so.
So was it modeled without the benefits of the bypass?
Yeah.
So it's modeled under worst-case conditions, everything coming through, but in some of those extreme storms, when it doesn't get overburdened, it does send some of that down the diversion pipe.
Right now, we have an off-on type situation here. I
So
think
you
that's
modeled
what
it
that
in the
model
off.
No, I believe because one of the responses to the comment,
Oh, he
to one of my
changed the
comments, he
invert.
actually changed the invert.
Yeah.
And that helped with the discharge rate, so that culvert is being utilized in the model.
At the higher
In the higher
storm
storm
events.
events, yeah.
Thanks.
I just wanted to point it out, because I thought that was a very important improvement that we
So
discussed.
does that
a
mean
while
we
ago.
got a riser or inlet structure?
It's
or
there's an inlet, a flared inlet section, but it's raised up at only the higher stormwater levels, and that'll remain a permanent fixture at the side of this stream. We
Yes,
put
it
it,
functions as a relief drain.
Right.
and that bypasses not only the section we're working on, but the section that we're currently talking about as well.
Just a clarification though, the drain pipe from the runway is always going through the drain, right?
Correct.
And then the bypass is just for everything else?
Correct.
So that, and the pipe coming from, I know it was a 30-inch going across, what size was that pipe, Amy? Or the pipe coming from the,
From
just curious what's like the additional capacity
this
of that
pipe
pipe would
or
be?
the new pipe,
No, the existing pipe.
the existing pipe? I forget the
I think it was
diameter.
a 24, if I'm not mistaken.
The one coming up from?
Coming from the
airport?
taxiway
From the,
that we're actually blocking off.
Is it called out if they just, Amy, if you zoom out a little bit, is it called out right off the screen?
24 inch, sorry,
Okay.
thank you.
And it's a 30
Like I
inch.
saw the arrow going up, but.
Then it's a 30 inch after that. Once we combine
Yeah.
forces at that one manhole, it's a 24 and a 30 coming in and a 30 going out.
Okay.
So it's 30 inch, right, okay.
So really the additional capacities for the overflow in those large storm events is the difference between the 24 and the 30.
30.
Yeah.
so let me ask you this, with the core logs up there on the northeastern side
Yeah.
of this slide, any, to Marissa's point of, getting the accumulations of silts and any TSS out of that water column first, is there some benefit that's coming by that core log and using that pocket, using that wetland?
I'd love to say yes, but we're actually starting to see headward erosion because that wetland is elevated above the stream channel that goes around the airport, and it's such a difference. We're starting to see nature trying to create a sustainable slope in that area from the water coming from that big red maple wetland, getting into this
Right-
channel.
right here.
And we're
Are you
seeing that
talking right
headward
here,
erosion.
right?
Yeah, you can.
Right here?
Yeah, right there.
Yes,
So we're starting
Yep.
to see some adaptations being taken there, and unfortunately, those adaptations are donating sediment to the system.
Okay. I know we have a butter just ready to jump out of his chair. Joe, would you have something to say?
Hi, good evening. Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, representing the owners of 27 Charles Street. We have had opportunity to review the latest BOBRAC review, and we did put together a quick letter yesterday and got it off to the commission. And we agree, we think there's three issues that still remain, and I'll go back to the big one for us, is this neighborhood ditch. And all due respect, Mr. Chairman, with regards to whose responsibility that is and whether it's the airport's, we're not necessarily talking about responsibility. We're talking about exploring the potential for mitigation of what's currently happening, not only to 27 Charles, but to the Matthews Way people from these flows. These flows, in talking to the owners of residents on Poor Street, the resident at 24 Poor Street who originally dug the ditch, his comment was he dug a small ditch. And nature has, over the years, more recent years, has greatly expanded that through scour velocity. And talk about sediment loading, so something's happening that's making this happen. And it's evident from the 41 monitoring reports that Stantec has done. This continues to be a problem. The temporary core logs that are keeping the stream in the banks outside of the August 18th storm is working. And we think that, by and large, the design here for the stream rehabilitation is going to work. But we have an opportunity at this juncture to address this issue at Grosvenor. And to look the other way, I think is just, it's short-sighted. And we've talked to Mr. Borghese with regards to his take on potential solutions. And we discovered there's a pipe in Grosvenor that was blocked. John finally found the history on that, and it seems to be that was a stub that was put in when the first half of Grosvenor was built for future extension, and then the extension of Grosvenor happened, and that they didn't propose any further drainage, so they didn't extend that pipe. But that pipe is not in a location that would help remedy this issue. Not only that, but it would add more water to the Sutton Street drainage system, which goes into Charles Street, which is already overwhelmed. So we may just be pushing the problem from the back side of 27 Charles to the front side of 27 Charles if that had happened. So it seems clear to me, it seems clear to John, that the solution to this problem is right here, in making some kind of a connection between the end of Grosvenor and this stream channel. We did a full calculation, a full stormwater analysis of the contributing area to the neighborhood ditch. And looking at the storm totals for the 25-year storm, we're forecasting that there's about 30 CFS coming down through this neighborhood ditch. They're diverting through this 30-inch pipe over 46 CFS in the 25-year storm. So theoretically, they're opening capacity in the stream channel for the diversion of this flow, or at least a portion of this flow. As far as the logistics and the permitting of this, I firmly believe the Grosvenor right-of-way, John Borghese has confirmed that the Grosvenor right-of-way goes to the airport limit. The assessor's maps are wrong. It shows 37 Grosvenor actually owning the end of the area between the end of Grosvenor and the airport. John confirmed the right-of-way goes right through to that T fence that's mentioned time and time again in all of the monitoring reports. It's the focal point for where the pictures are taken. That T fence is the back left corner of the Grosvenor right-of-way. That's where the ditch ends, and it just flows on to the airport out parcel where the tower is, and then flows wherever it wants, into Matthews, into 27 Charles, whatever. I think some kind of an inlet could be put there, some kind of with a pipe that goes over to the stream channel. I don't understand the permitting. In my mind, that's a temporary impact to BVW, less than 5,000 square feet, well within the purview of this board. I don't see any 404, 401 permitting, but I could be wrong there. But again, why are we going to let permitting and the hurdles of permitting get in the way? With regards to how this work gets done and who does this work and who funds this work, we're happy to join in those discussions, because at the end of the day, the goal has always been to stop the flooding at 27 Charles. So it needs to be explored. It needs to be. We need to see analysis and information with regards to the feasibility of this. We think it's feasible. We think from the grades, from the grade standpoint, and all of that, it's feasible. We think from the standpoint of introduction to a point source on this new channel, you can address the potential for scouring there or impact to the flow within the channel. So all we're asking for at this point is investigation that could then spur discussion with the town and with the airport and our parties to find a resolution. Otherwise, we're just looking the other way, and we're missing an opportunity where equipment is going to be out there and work is going to be actively being done in this area. So that's where we stand on the standpoint of the neighborhood ditch. With regards to some of the defense that that the airport is putting up, that it's not their water? It's not coming from them? We respectfully disagree.
We never said
That, well,
Just for the record, that's an error.
I may stand corrected, but regardless, the issue is, our next issue is with regards to the temporary measures that they've put out there, that they've documented is working, up to the north of Poor Street in that core log line. Yes, it's working. It's diverting water into the stream channel. But that's a temporary measure. Those core logs will, in time, degrade. What's the final solution? There's no final solution to that diversion. If the core logs degrade and that split flow area is allowed to come down onto Poor Street, now there's more water coming down onto Poor Street into the neighborhood ditch and down to this area. So to the point that the core logs are working, we look to the applicant and the commission to answer the question with regards to what's the final form of that mitigation. The last point is just to reinforce the call for this model to be correct. We called in our original report over a year ago that we saw problems with the original modeling from the Runway 5 project, in that we felt that the survey wasn't accurately depicted, it didn't pick up and accurately depict the cross-sectional area of the existing channel as it moved through. And if it had, they may have rethought how much of the stream bed they needed to relocate at that time. We then called into question the 225 feet between what they're now proposing and what the Runway 5 project did, this area between that is visibly degraded and overgrown with sediment deposition. If we had gone down the path of a year ago of saying, okay, do the whole thing, connect this stream bed rehabilitation project with the Runway 5 stream bed, so we had a full brand new stream bed, we wouldn't be talking about having to berm up this side. So at minimum, I think we need to make sure the model's correct, and that the survey information that's going into that model to establish the actual cross-sections of this stream bed are correct. Because if it's not, and the model's not true, and we don't have the freeboard that they're purporting to have in those storms, then the overtopping's not going to happen where it happened. It's going to happen at this corner, right? And that's not even to say what's going to happen in the long term with continued sedimentation and vegetation growth within this. So I think absolutely there needs to be something within this decision, and we don't want to delay. We want this, whatever can happen, to happen as soon as humanly possible. But there should be something in the condition that compels the airport to either move into discussions and permitting with all of the powers that be, Army Corps, DEP, and this commission, to a program of long-term maintenance that looks to periodically go in and do this. This is what it is. This is a drainage channel that was built in the 40s for the airport. Yes, jurisdictionally it is now a stream, but all of the parties that have permitting authority over this understand that first and foremost, you can't look away from function. And Army Corps, we've permitted dredging and vegetation removal projects on drainage ditches that are stream beds, that are wetlands, that are jurisdictional. And it can be done to do that kind of routine dredging and maintenance. Mosquito control used to do it all the time until DEP said they couldn't sidecast anymore. And then now mosquito control doesn't do that as much as they can, and the reason they were effective at it was because they had the permits in hand to go and do it at where and when they needed to in the name of public health. But it can be done. And I think there needs to be that commitment by the airport to look at this long-term and make sure that whatever need be done to maintain the capacities, as you said, Mr. Lynch, it's a snapshot as far as the model, and it's gone, 1 year later when there's more vegetation and more sediment. So there needs to be something connected to that. So we're certainly happy with a lot of the aspects of the project and a lot of the movement that they've made in answering the third-party peer review comments and answering the things that we've brought to date. And I don't want to minimize that. They definitely have done the work. And this is a major project that they have now gotten funding for, and it will happen. And that's absolutely great, because it's going to, by and large, help. But we want to make sure that it's as good as it can be, and as not guaranteed as possible to not have problems at 27 Charles ever again, but as close as we can possibly get to that kind of a world.
Thank you, Joe. I want to,
I did have a question on Joe's
one second.
comment, but
I just
I
want
wasn't sure you're gonna come back around.
I just wanted to correct, I am. I just want to correct you as far as myself saying that they're not responsible for the water up on the side streets that are affecting your property. There's an issue up there. I agree. I saw the pictures. I saw the water going down Matthews Way like a whitewater rafting trip. But you can't, I don't feel that the airport is responsible fully for that. I know there's issues with drainage with the town, so I think the most important thing I was trying to do was to get this brook taken care of that would mitigate some of your issues, and then get that straightened out, and then try and move on to the other issues at hand. I'm not forgetting about that. I know there's an issue there, but I don't feel it's 100% the airport's issue.
No, and we totally agree, Mr. Chairman, that
Okay,
it's not the
so-
responsibility, it's not the full responsibility of the airport.
So,
We're just looking for an opportunity to investigate the potential and to piggyback off of the work that they are doing.
It's just that we can't do a cure-all in one application. The main thing is right now is to get the brook. We have an issue with the cross brook, that the third-party review questions, and you, and even ourselves. That I think there's gotta be some addressing there, as far as somehow scouring it out, so, like you said, so we don't have that buildup, because it'll just keep building up. You know it, I know it, they know it. So, my main thing is let's get the brook straightened out, the drainage across, the cross-section straightened out. And then from there, we should be able to address somehow, I don't know how, to get involved with the town. I know the towns must be using a blind eye to this issue, because they are partially responsible. And so
We had hoped that they would jump in and take responsibility, but that's not the case. It's not that Mr. Borghesi's not
No.
willing to discuss it and willing to further along, but I think he's approached it from the terms of one of practicality and physical potential of this project helping.
Exactly. When this first happened, I spoke to Mr. Borghese myself, and he was reluctant to concede anything, because he was the same of opinion that these guys are. It's not our water, it's not their water, so that he was kind of waiting for these guys to step up to the plate to see what they were gonna do. And I think at some point, he knows that he's gotta address that. Like I said, my main thing is to get this done. It'll help you guys pretty much, I think, a lot. And then we can address that other issue with all them dead-end streets, of which if they ever surveyed that property they'd be shocked how much land those people in undesignated streets don't own.
Probably.
There's a lot of property that's been kind of encroached from the airport. But that's another day. But like I said, I respect you, what you're saying. But my main concern right now is to get that channel straightened out, so, and then move on to the next issue. Jack, you have any questions?
I'll just try to recap, because it's gotten confusing in the last 10 minutes. It sounds like we have a design that we've got agreement that it would work if it was maintained. Okay, so the issue of maintaining this current design is kind of critical to this project. That's how I view it. Also the issue of the core logs being a temporary accommodation to, stop the bleeding, as they say, also should be addressed as part of this project, as part of this NOI. In terms of putting a stub for Grosvenor Street to tie into the intermittent stream, if it can be done, great. I don't think we can condition it,
No.
If the town decides to, extend a drainage pipe down through a drainage ditch and tie it into an intermittent stream, it should be addressed then, not as part of this. Anyway, that's what I'm hearing. Am I wrong, or did I get anything wrong, or what?
Just a clarification, that
Yeah.
the extension of the Grosvenor pipe is not physically possible. So that's not something that that Mr. Borghese or we are advocating for, and it definitely can't be part of this application, because it's not
Okay, so you
even
agree.
within there. What I was saying is, at the end of Grosvenor, put some kind of an inlet as the neighborhood ditch comes down to take some of the water and then pipe it to the airport stream.
All work on airport property?
Within the Grosvenor right-of-way and airport property.
Joe, 1 second, he wants to counter your.
No, you need to.
I need a microphone for home.
Yeah.
People folks at
Oh,
home.
I got you. I'm loud. It's okay.
We actually need you on the permanent record, so that's.
So, just to echo that concern about the end of Grosvenor taking the flow from upgradient areas, I think currently right now in discussions with Mr. Borghese about this, I just don't think we don't want it to feel like that opportunity is ruled out entirely at this time. And we understand that the focus can be within the channel at the moment in addressing the immediate concern, but I think the initial feedback and response from Stantec, I think prior before we were even involved, was that it wasn't feasible to connect this area, where on site when we were walking around, it was myself and a Stantec representative and Amy, it was pretty clear to us that the topography and the general slope is allowable for that connection to be made. And understanding it might not be able to be conditioned as a part of this, but I don't think it should be ruled out as an option down the road. And I think all parties would agree that it's not 100% their water, 100% town's water, and everyone could potentially work together to propose a good solution that would ultimately benefit everyone downhill from this location.
Thank you.
I have no more questions or
All
comments.
set? Joe?
So I had one question that was specific to something that Joe had said, and that was the suggestion that when the channel was originally modeled, you have reason to believe, making up your words, but I'm not gonna be far off, reason to believe that the topography, the survey, was not accurate. I mean, what do you base that on? I mean, just visual observation, or?
Yeah, visual observation of the existing stream bed and the original runway 5 HydroCAD model that showed a trapezoidal.
So you're talking strictly,
channel.
again, the channel itself, not
The-
so much the surrounding topography?
No, just the channel
Just
itself.
the channel, okay,
The-
so we
the
already,
channel
since
itself.
we already talked about that earlier, and I
Right.
don't disagree with that, I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
Yeah.
And so what we've said is in that those areas where it's filled in and vegetated to represent it with that shape, that topography, and also to apply the right roughness coefficient into it as you model the flow through it.
If the ultimate decision of the commission is to not do anything with that stream, that section, that 225
I'm not
feet.
saying one way or the other, I'm saying that's what I'm now hearing, that's what we were talking about on the survey inaccuracy was.
Correct.
Within the channel itself.
Correct.
Okay, I understand that now. But what I see here, though, is I see two mutually exclusive problems that are colliding together. And this engineering piece of it and this conservation piece of it, believe it or not, is quite easy. But this is a challenge of leadership and diplomacy. The town needs to admit it's their problem. Absolutely, positively, it needs to go to the airport commission and to the mayor and say, we've got a problem, we would like to work with you to solve the problem, and we need to solve the problem on our own, but we need access on your property, and we're gonna need to get an easement from you, FAA stuff aside, to be able to collect this water and move it in a separate channel to the same end area away from this. But nobody's having those conversations. Nobody's even willing to admit there's a problem in town. And here I sit as an appointed member of this commission, I'm probably gonna get lambasted for saying it. Show some leadership. We gotta do something about this. We have to, one, admit it, and two, put a plan in place to deal with it. Things don't happen overnight, but the more you ignore it, they will never get solved. And that's where we are. What is the result of the runway 5 taxiway and the runout area expansion and the diversion of that stream with the things that we've talked about and the things that we've done to, intercept and divert and bypass are all positive things. Doesn't solve the bigger problem. The Charles Street problem isn't the airport's problem. It's the town's problem flowing across the airport land. It's not their problem.
Well, correction.
Until someone admits that we're contributing to it.
Right.
And opens up those dialogues, nobody's gonna
Right.
get anywhere in agreeing with this.
Right. It's our assertion that the 27 Charles problem is the airport's problem and the town's problem, but the airport is fixing their problem. So there won't be an overtopping of the airport stream.
Since I'm televised,
Which
I have a
led to
bunch of people who will point me every now and then to this position. Let me be clear. The town is contributing a big hunk of the problem from off-site of the airport onto the airport problem, onto the airport property, and those blue areas outside of the stream are working their way down to the lower reaches and impacting in the butter. If these were private property owners, this would have been resolved years ago. They would not be pointing the fingers. To hear, I'm not going to mention any names, but at a meeting 2 weeks ago at this very table, we had a comment that was raised by one of our town officials who said the reason why they weren't designing a culvert properly is he's got 10 years left to retirement, and it needs to only last 10 years. That is not the way we solve problems in civil engineering. I built stuff for 100 years.
It's cost, too.
Of course it's cost. And in the butter who gets impacted with rents and insurance rates and tenancy and rebuilds and all of the inconvenience, that's costly too. And they're taxpayers. We have got to get the town officials to admit there's a problem and to show some damn leadership and open up a dialogue at the very least. Because until it happens, nothing's happening. That's all I have to say. There seems to be no dialogue. I mean, this is, maybe it's already gone up to the town manager, maybe it's gone to the board of selectmen, I don't know. But if it has, I can't understand why there hasn't been at least a dialogue that says to the airport, let's just find out if we can solve it engineering-wise. Find out what it costs. Put it on a capital plan, but we need an easement to get across your land to get this water to drain. Will you be willing to do that? And how do we go about that? If we build it, will you maintain it? There's no discussions going on. And we're sitting here spinning our wheels with two very unique problems, both of which are big. And we're only solving a piece of it that we can. And that's where we are. That's exactly where we are today. So to make the town do something through this order of conditions is ridiculous. To expect that this is a solution that the airport should do on their own on behalf of the town is ridiculous. I really believe that the project that's before us, modeled correctly and with the ability to maintain it in the future, is a solution to one of the problems. The one that they're responsible for exclusively and the one that they can control. I'm done.
I agree.
So my question is for you. We have a notice of intent in front of us. We have the applicants seated before us. They've presented their evidence. You understand better than I do, being an engineer.
I think we have one more turn of the barrel before we can act on the application that's before us. So that is the modeling question and the survey and what it is we can understand better of their ability to maintain the ditch, even if it requires additional permitting. That's what's before us right now.
Then that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm going with this. We have the four corners of the notice in front of us. We have the neighborhood and the consultants providing a lot of data.
I don't think any of us disagree
But-
in this room.
But how do we, as a commission, issue an order of conditions on the notice of intent that's in front of us that satisfies beyond the scope of the notice?
No, my little tirade was
It
to
doesn't.
clearly demonstrate we're not gonna satisfy everybody.
Well-
We can only do what we can with regards to the responsibility that is now before us, to that enforcement order that resulted in this
I
NOI.
guess that's where I'm going here. It's like, I think we're limited, I think,
Very much so.
by the notice that's before us. And I think as long as the notice of intent that is before us satisfies the direction that the commission gave them, I don't see how, unless they on their own choose to engage with the other parties to include their work in their notice, I don't see how we go further.
I don't think you're suggesting that.
I was gonna say, the inflection in the tone of your voice is a question, but you're basically agreeing with what I just said. That's what I heard.
I agree with you more than not, Joe, but, I do. But at the same time, I'm not calling anybody out either. I'm saying, we gave instructions to the airport to file a notice of intent. We gave them the parameters. We said, this is what we want from you. Have they met that burden?
Almost.
Okay, so if they haven't met the burden, what we have at our disposal, absent agreement by the parties, is the order of conditions where we can lawfully issue conditions. That's as far as we can go. I think.
I didn't wanna simplify it, but I'll state it again.
I gotta simplify it.
I think the only thing that's left, based on what we've talked about this evening, is what are your permitting limitations and why are you reluctant to follow those? Because if in the longer run, improvements to that channel and maintenance of that channel is something you need to do, you should pursue it.
Okay.
One.
Yeah.
Two, is the work that's here, there's a little bit more modeling that needs to be done, both with regards to topography and the shape of that channel, and with regards to the roughness of the rest of, just the way the water moves through, you have to account for the debris in the floor of the channel. Those two things, I think, is really the last of the worst things that are holding this up. The modeling question is far more complicated.
That's why, when I asked in the beginning about the channel, can we make it a modification for later, can we do the work now? But I agree, listening to the third party, that has to be somehow cleaned out. I don't know, we can't clean it, you can't clean it out
No, without a permit.
without a
Strict letter of
permit?
law for, especially Corps of Engineers, it's a secondary impact.
We
You know,
couldn't,
that
we
lumped
couldn't
on.
make that part of our order?
Not part of this.
No.
That's
No,
that's not something we can reach out to?
Not without us doing the advanced permitting.
So I guess there's the rub right there.
As a consultant, you get snake bit over the years, impacting more wetlands, trying to minimize, it always gets in the back of your head because you get beat up over the years.
By us
impacting
sometimes.
wetlands.
But this is a unique
I know.
situation.
It's not.
So you attack something like this, trying to minimize, which is what we've done here, but you also putting back wetland vegetation. We're actually planting some of the shrubs and things like that on this project, trying to restore some functions and values. that are the very species that are causing problems in some of the downstream sections. Now, we're trying to plant them up higher, not trying to get them down into the channel itself, but things do grow. Again, being snake bit over the years, we're trying to put something back, not just stormwater flows, but trying to address some of those other functions and values too. So this is me from all those years of permitting, probably doing some things that weren't the best for stormwater flows, but overall, we're trying to address the Wetlands Protection Act and those higher order permits. It's a tough one. I think a lot of us here agree that if we're not trying to minimize impacts, if we're trying to just focus on stormwater, as you heard Brendan say, and I think a few more of us, that downstream section would be addressed. But again, trying to minimize and trying to respect timelines and things like that, this is what we ended up with. So this is by no means the perfect, the premier solution to this problem, but when you all things considered, this is what we've developed with hopes of getting something expediently. And that's where it stands. So if we get marching orders, you know, in one way or another to expand this project, to connect the former section with this new section, we'd certainly go away to consider that. Right now, I think we're going away and remodeling this section and making sure that with the different channel configurations, we have the free board that we think we have. And that's what I hear from marching orders, you know, right now.
Well, I'm just trying to achieve gridlock here.
Yeah.
I believe from the very beginning, we all understood the need for urgency, but not haste. You know, the differences, right? You know, very cautious moving forward, make sure you get it right. But we recognize the potential for that. Well, we've had a couple rain events that proved, well, son of a gun, we got to get moving. But I don't ever want to compromise what we can do as part of this project and get it going separate from the other mutually exclusive part of this problem. But I also don't want to have anybody take their eyes off that ball. That still is going to be something that it may not be before the public hearing here, but someone's got to be hammering this around on a continual basis and get it on someone's radar screen. You know, we got to, yeah, it's costly. It's a pretty big problem. Big problems are costly.
That's what I asked him before, when we talked about the water up from the street. That we can't hold the airport responsible for the water that comes from that area. So that's why I want to divert from that. My main thing on this application was the stream. That was the main, that's what they were applying for. And about the permitting to do that section the way we want to. But I mean, why can't we just do it the way it is now, and they can figure out what you can get away with?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Do it, and then we can always, like I said, do a modification to.
No, I think completely separate. I mean,
It's all
it's a
separate
completely separate
Yeah.
NOI. It's a
That'll
completely
That'll be a
different
separate
animal.
NOI
All right, so
by someone else.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about the Rosemary and all that. I'm talking about that section
Right.
that has been under, that he says he can't
The total.
dredge, clean out, or whatever, and, you know, leaving a foot and a half.
I think that's still on the table for this permit.
That's
I
the
think that
one I'm
still is.
talking about.
Yeah.
That, what can we do, that's that cross-section. What can they do? Do what they can, and if it doesn't work, then they can still file a modification on the NOI, that it didn't work.
So I think the downstream portion that currently has all the sediment in it and everything, they can't do anything to that.
Right.
And that's gonna be the issue with, you know, they'll be able to continuously maintain this new portion, but that portion they can't do anything with,
So you
which
can't
is,
screw with that at all.
No, it'd be
which is the issue.
It'd be segmentation at that point, doing it in another year before
Yeah.
it frowns on that significantly, so.
That 6 to 8 month timeline he gave you for core permits earlier, that's a hopeful.
Yeah,
timeline.
Bishop.
That's hopeful, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's, they're,
You're looking at a year.
And it won't protect the environment any more than you folks are doing. That's the thing that really gets me, is the Corps rarely adds protections over and above what we receive for the Wetlands Protection Act. And so it's a year of loss with no improvement to the project, in my opinion.
Okay,
I
so,
have a question.
Yes.
If we approved it as it is right now, hypothetically,
closed it out with a certificate of compliance, and then another NOI was filed. This is taken care of. The stream has been restored in that area. And then another NOI is filed, and then we can go through that 8-month process to get the stream sediment taken care of under
next
another
section.
application.
That's
And
easy.
when this is already flowing and getting more water away from 27 Charles Street, then pursue that longer permitting that would allow for O&M of that stream.
We have to be very methodical, and we will be very methodical, that when we write if we get to the point of writing an order of conditions, we also say, if it's subject, for any restoration, subject to a 3-year growing period, therefore they're not even eligible to request this. We want to be able to say that, notwithstanding the growing period, we will allow consideration of other NOIs on the same property.
Okay.
The only other thing we have to do, if we've hired a third-party review, we have to get them on the same page somewhat with them negotiating. So that we had a third-party review, and he said, do this, we just blew it away.
I don't think we're disagreeing,
No, I don't
I don't
think
think
the
we're in
9 points,
disagreement
there
at
were
this point.
two.
We all saying the same thing, and,
There was a lot
yeah,
of agreement, and there were changes made because of the review as well, so I just highlighted the 2 impasse items, that was it.
yeah,
Try to focus
before
our
the
attention
final
on other-
iteration between Stantec and
That's
Bobrick,
that's a lawyer.
you know, Joe Pesnola's thing was standing, his comments and his analysis was standing on its own and was highly questionable until such time as I'm reading the reviews, and they're all saying the exact same thing. You know, remodel this thing, get the topography right, deal with maintenance, and I think we're gonna be on the same page.
Okay, so now, so you're saying your third-party review is in agreement with Stantec right now? Or do-
Except for 2 items.
Except for 2 items.
Well, they could have been talking back and forth.
So I guess, in general, we agree that this is an improvement of the stream channel. I think at this point, we're all in agreement that the middle section of the channel that is not really being addressed outside of the upland berm needs to be addressed at some point. Whether or not it's the commission's decision to approve this as is and condition in some fashion that that section is addressed right after this is completed, that's out of my jurisdiction. But I would be on board I guess my stance is I just don't want that section to be completely disregarded and say, yeah, we're done with this, so we're done with the work on the site. I think we all agree that that section needs to be addressed just like this upper section is being done. And if the permitting timelines really mess with the intent of this project to better the downstream areas, 27 Charles, then I would be in agreement that this would be sufficient right now and to move forward with another permit for that middle section.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
That works.
But we still,
That works,
we
so-
still need to model
Yeah.
the middle section.
If that section is modeled accurately right now and it works, then yes. If it is modeled with the current cross-section and with the mounding and sedimentation and that stream section blows up, then that's a whole different conversation, then that needs to be addressed now.
Now, on that point, I want to illustrate something Marissa said the first time, is I don't believe that HydroCAD is the appropriate program to analyze the stream. I think you need to go with the HEC-RAS. That way we can properly analyze the bends.
I would agree.
As well. And I don't know if we need to force that on this particular one, but I certainly will on the future one that we've alluded to.
Right.
Well, we're gonna
But with
remodel
that,
it.
but with that being, oh, go ahead.
If we're gonna remodel it to account for the, you know, the topography and the floor condition anyway,
Right.
You got anybody in your shop that knows HEC-RAS? That's what
I'd have to ask Pat, and I
yeah,
know we have it.
Randy's a wetlands guy.
I know we
He
have
knows
it
a lot about
in-house,
engineering.
but-
yeah.
I'm sure someone has.
What is it?
HEC-RAS. It's an Army Corps program. It's free.
But how many cross-sections would you have to analyze? I mean, let's face it, you could do one every linear foot,
No.
you could do one every 5 feet, you could do everyone. This can really get voluminous here at some point.
It's roughly like 225, 250 feet, right, that middle section? I mean, I would personally be okay with if it's every 50 or so feet, as long as it's,
As long as a
or
picks up the
drastic change.
characteristics.
Or
Right.
drastic.
If the changes in the characteristics occur, then you gotta,
Right.
you know, model it. And
It's like roadway cross sections, driveways and changes in grade, intersections, things like that. But typical, I would do every 50 feet, and if anything in between is drastically different, I would include that.
Marissa, do you have more questions on this?
I do not.
Okay, so in review, right now you have a problem, you're all set, you agree, you're in agreement with what he wants to do, berm it and that. You have concerns about the cross-section that we can condition that at some point it can be addressed?
No.
If
do it
you're gonna
now.
summarize, let's try to summarize it, right? So, modeling first and foremost. Cross-section in the floor conditions that are accurate, using a better model than simply HydroCAD. Do that. It's going to then give us results that get reviewed, they're going to prove out for the various design storms how that channel will function. If it, as everybody hopes, it's not going to be an issue, problematic, then we can get into the more specific things about what we're going to do with, you know, how we would issue an order of conditions to let this part of the improvement project move forward, and then require them to come in and look at the additional permitting for that upstream section for one, and then whatever the town brings in, you know, as part of any negotiation of how it is they want to resolve that. So it's really three slices.
That's
This project.
I consider that like phase 2. Because we're saying that they're not responsible for the water.
I'm saying
company.
phase 2 is simply that upper reaches, up gradient, the channel maintenance question and the permitting of that, that's phase 2.
The bottom
Phase
is to tell
3
us
is
that this
the
plan-
neighborhood
It's
issue.
a neighbor, okay. Okay, so we got.
So we have additional information we're on the hook for, is how I read it right now. And the outcome of that additional information will determine the direction this goes for the
Okay,
next
so-
hearing.
So we got so we gotta get the cross-section done, and what
Don't
else
forget
you
about
want?
the coir logs.
Yeah, just gonna mention that, Mr. Chairman.
I don't wanna get the town stuff involved
No,
in this.
no.
I
This
I
is-
don't think it's pertinent to this application.
Right, this,
We
I'm,
get-
I'm talking about the core log line that's up to the south of the Red Maple Swamp, that's currently diverting water, keeping water flowing to the airport stream. And how the applicant is going to address that long-term. Because what's been proposed, what's been installed is temporary.
We weren't. We were gonna allow the natural accumulation of materials along that core logs, and, you know, we put something out there in a good faith effort to put additional flows into that stream, but we were trying to avoid additional work in wetlands. Putting a core log down is one thing, right? But as soon as we start digging diversion trenches and things of that nature, you know, there's our impact footprint again. So in summary, in the notice of intent right now, the staking of that core log, letting nature take its course was all we were gonna do with that diversion.
Now, how do you,
It's rather unfortunate that we can do a cork log as a BMP and do it temporarily, but one beaver can come in there and do it on their own with no effing permits and destroy everything. So why can't we just put an ongoing condition that is part of perpetual maintenance, is that the core logs be inspected every year as part of your mowing or whatever, and that if they need to be fortified, to fortify them every year or periodically, and give us a report to that effect.
We can.
Make it ongoing maintenance.
We can.
you comfortable
Temporary,
with that?
temporary, multiple temporaries, I have no problem with
The
that.
third party, you're comfortable with that?
I
Is
think
that, was that part of your overview of the project, was those core logs?
Yeah, so those came in after our initial narrative, and I think that could be included in the operation and maintenance of this project. And as long as a timeline is set for regular inspections, and after certain rain events, obviously we get things like last year, those are probably gonna get blown out. So after whatever depth that everyone agrees on, like typical O&M plans, as long as it's consistently inspected and maintained, in theory, they should continue to do what they're doing currently.
Okay, so you can incorporate that in your remarks for the third party review, your final you have to get straightened out with him, so we have it, everybody's on the same page. I know Joe wasn't, but we'll work on that.
Well, I think that it would be included as the operation and maintenance of the notice of intent application. That is all encompassing.
All right, so we need to continue, correct?
Yes.
Can I request one additional
Go ahead. What's
piece of
that?
information? Is it possible to get like a permitting timeline, understanding it might not be part of this project for the maintenance of the work? Just, an overview. Just the different permits that we require, just so that everyone on the commission has that in front of them and understands that Army Corps is, 6 months to a year, and
If
then
we were to
other-
elevate our impacts to those next levels,
Yeah.
what it would take.
You got a good handle on what
Only
those
that I've been
thresholds
through
are.
it dozens of times, but it would, I keep using a year.
Yeah.
And I think that's realistic, but try to pin the Army Corps down on submission dates these days has been impossible. They've been months and months late, and,
Your tax dollars, that what?
so I could take a guess.
Yeah, just a guess, just so that, we have that as part of the record that, it's, the additional work is gonna require a year, 2 years additional time.
Permitting, okay.
Yeah.
And what worries the airport and I is that there's an economy of scale of doing this project. Doing this little piece, and then knowing that we're staring in the face, for lack of a better term, being forced to do this next piece, doing them separate is a 2x cost, where it might only be 1.5x if we do them together. The whole economy of scale thing, and we pay so much for a contractor for mobilization,
Right.
bid process and everything else. If we are gonna be forced to do that next section, it ends up doubling, more likely even increase over that, tripling costs on this project if we do them as two separate entities. So that's something we're gonna have to talk about as well behind the scenes here, and maybe, so, this is by no means finished, but
So we need to
we have
get-
direction.
Hey, how's retirement treating you?
I've been
Well, not
enjoying
so
it.
good right now.
All right, so
I
we're gonna.
got a couple things. Hold
Yeah.
on. So, in this notice of intent, and I should know this, but we don't have a formal O&M, correct?
No, we had said, we didn't want to, until all these details got worked out.
Okay.
Our own plans that we do for like our NIPD's stormwater pollution
Yeah.
prevention plans are almost tabular in fashion. It's a nice 11 by 17 that the actual maintenance staff can hang up in their shack and refer to it easily, as opposed to a voluminous thing. I don't know if that's what's acceptable here, but we have a plan that numbers from 1 to 10, the items they're supposed to look at, the duration, the inspection timelines. If they find X, the duration for fixing it, and here's what the fix is. And it's
Yeah.
usually just a big
If
table.
you've got a sample,
And
just
that's an O&M
send a
plan.
sample of what you just described.
That's a good
Sound-
idea.
And I'm sure Amy will circulate it to us
All right,
to
I'll
look
let
at.
you take a peek at one
Okay.
we do
We
for
need
our SWIPs and
something,
see if
Yeah,
it's.
that's better than
Before we
a
close
file
out.
in a cabinet.
Does the airport have a on-site SWIP right
We have
now?
a facility SWIP and we have construction SWIPs for all our
Okay, so we can
projects.
add the inspections to that SWIP for like the core
We would
logs?
hope to, so that the maintenance staff is not dealing with separate.
Well,
Separate.
yeah,
entities.
single document. yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the second thing is, so we're gonna have another round of information that I assume the commission will want our third-party peer review to review. I think we're coming at the end of the current till, and I think maybe this meeting is swallowing up the rest of the budget, would you say? Is that correct, Brendan?
Yeah.
So, we need more money.
Yeah.
So that needs to, I mean, because,
Yeah, they're gonna work together for the next 2 weeks, I hope.
well, I know, but I'm just saying,
You're talking about funding
Yeah.
the consultant.
yeah,
So, how far will we be extending the current contract with the consultant? How much more time are we talking?
I don't know about,
I mean, it would be probably just one more follow-up review and attendance at another hearing, so. It's
Is
not
that-
necessarily a time, it's,
Yeah.
it'd
yeah,
be
it's
those
not,
two items.
yeah, it's not really a time, it's more like
So,
scope.
is that
Scope.
something you can handle? And I know that that's a very difficult question, I'm not asking it lightly, but I'm just trying to make this happen.
right in short is, we have very limited to
Right.
get to this point.
Right.
I mean, it was a stretch to, but if it's, you know, it is a requirement, we're gonna have to facilitate to get this project done this year.
It just sounds like, to me.
We've come this far.
Yeah,
It
we're almost there.
sounds like that the finish line is right there,
Right.
and what I'm taking from it, and it sounds like a very cooperative tone from everybody. And I understand you're the guy that's carrying the water, so.
Yeah, if that's what we need, I mean,
Some people, their butters are carrying a lot of water too. I appreciate your saying.
If you wanna go ahead and identify yourself and speak,
Sure.
you're most welcome.
Sure, Tyler Franklin for the abutter 27 Charles Street LLC. And I was just commenting that, obviously we want to get this done as quickly as possible as well. And we want to get it done right. And I can appreciate the financial burden on the airport, but there's also real impacts in real time to us. So, while we appreciate that there's a financial burden on them, it's their channel and it's their burden to maintain it and ensure that it's not causing, damage to abutters. And so,
Well, the problem is with this situation, with that channel, it's a lot of bureaucracy from the federal government that's kind of got their hands tied. They can't go in there and just clean it out. If they could, that'd be a wonderful thing, and
Sure.
I'm sure they'd be glad to do it.
sure, I appreciate that, but it's also not like they just volunteered to do it without us trying to, drag them kicking and screaming a little bit to this point. So I understand there's hoops to jump through.
There hasn't been any kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I can tell you, that
There hasn't been any at all.
they've been
They've been really stepping
given the
up.
complexity of what we're dealing with.
And I appreciate and empathize where you are.
Sure, yeah.
I understand where you're standing, who you answer to.
Right.
But they're not kicking and screaming.
And we are trying, you've been there for a couple of meetings.
Yep.
But there's just so many things that we can do or what we can't do, and there's only so many things they can do.
Sure.
Even though they want to do it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm sure they'd like to go in there with an excavator, come on, just blow a trench right down, right down the middle of the slope and call it a day.
Yeah, I can say honestly, we appreciate everything that you guys have done. And when we first came in here and we were discussing the enforcement order months ago, I can appreciate that there's a lot of red tape to go through. We just want to make sure that and it seems like, portions of it are progressing in a way that protects our interests. And certainly I understand the financial component of it. But, so it is what it is.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
One point I want to make to that one, I know Joe's report made it seem like that channel could easily handle the flow coming from your street, but right now, he's sitting there hoping that the design right now actually has enough freeboard for what's currently in that channel, without the 25% increase.
And the superstorms.
And now I'm hoping his analysis is gonna come back and say, look at this, I have 25% more capacity. Come on in.
So, okay, so we got the review of the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'd get an
He's gonna do
estimate
it.
from Brendan for another round review, potentially attendance, and maybe you don't need to come to the next meeting if things are cool.
And as far as the town drainage, it's, once we get this approved, Joe, I will go to see Mr. Bugaz and myself
Thank you, Mr.
and try and get the parties to get it to work with Francesco, and I don't, Randy's probably gonna run kicking and screaming, he want no part of that.
No, I'm in this one to the end, so.
Oh, good, awesome.
Probably through construction too. so.
Good. So, we'll move on, but like I said, at least we get something done. So that's gotta help alleviate some of your issues. Not all of them, but, because like I said, I saw those pictures. Actually, Francisco showed me, and I saw that babbling stream going through Matthews Way. That was pretty impressive. But hopefully we'll never get one of those for the next 1,000 years.
So, we're continuing.
We're good. Make a
You're
motion.
requesting a continuance?
Yes.
So moved.
So April 24th.
April 24th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
all.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thank you. you, guys.
Old business. 242-1766. Request for an extension on 1600 Osgood Street.
So, this order issued in February 2020 governed the redevelopment of 1600 Osgood for the Amazon distribution facility. It did enjoy the benefit of the COVID emergency tolling, so the expiration date is May 27th, 2024. Site work's complete. Remaining tasks are just spring overseeding for sparse areas and monitoring restoration areas and invasive species management efforts. They're asking for a 6-month extension, but I recommend a year just for belt and suspenders because you just never know. And it just saves them from coming back in 6 months, so.
I think the bylaw specifies we can issue 1-year extensions.
At a
so
time.
So that's consistent with your
Yeah.
recommendations, Amy.
And why wouldn't you give them an extension, you know?
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
No, but I'd give them a whole year instead of just 6
This has
months.
been a project that we can hang our hat on. 'Cause that was a pretty impressive project, and
I don't wear a hat, but if I do,
I don't either.
I'll hang one.
But I mean, I think they did a great job, and they crossed all their Ts and dotted their Is, so I don't see an issue.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Okay.
The other one is, the last one is 242-1732, an extension for Stevie's Pond.
All right, so this order was issued in May of 2018. It was a 5-year order from the get-go for management of invasive species and nutrient loading in Stevens Pond. It did enjoy the COVID emergency tolling, so the current expiration date is August 18th of 2024. Water and Wetlands is the newer contractor. It started out with Solitude, but now it's Water and Wetlands. They took over management in 2023. They wanted to come forward and discuss with you the potential for an extension. I did advise that I believe, because it was a 5-year order already, that it may not be eligible for an extension.
This is different.
But perhaps we can talk about it, and I don't know, and I wasn't able to get any feedback about the possibility of a certificate of compliance being issued with some ongoing abilities to do
This is a
treatment and
classic-
reporting.
This is a classical operation and management perpetual condition.
Yeah.
That, they need to give us an update periodically.
Right.
But, not reopen the hearing, but we could give them an order, add a new condition that requires perpetual O&M, reporting annually, and giving us some sort of more formal report maybe every 3 years. And just make it a perpetual, and it's
Right.
just, it survives.
Right.
They have to record it, but at least it survives.
Right. And so you can introduce yourself. Sorry, go
Hi,
ahead.
everybody. My name is Joe Honorato with Water and Wetland. So I've been working with Amy on this extension here, and we, as Amy introduced, we took over Stevens Pond last year, so 2023, from the previous contractor. I think some great points, right? It was issued as a 5-year. I think somebody said, this is different, right? It's a lot of these lake projects don't come before commissions that often, right? It's a lot different than, say, building a deck in a wetland buffer area, things like that. It's ongoing maintenance from the get-go, essentially. Hopefully, you've all gotten a chance to read our year-end report from last year. So we're managing fan ward, which is invasive, primarily just in the beach area, as well as water quality through the use of aluminum sulfate, which is commonly used in drinking water. So both of those products are approved in drinking water at exponentially higher concentrations than what we use them at. The herbicide to treat fan ward we're using just in a fraction of the water body. But, I guess my point and really the reason for an extension is we don't just ask for an extension, right? We always look at alternatives analysis. Like every year we do a new alternatives analysis, just like you do when you do a new NOI, and we say, is anything changing, right? And it really isn't, right? We're still managing the same targets as we were back in, or not us, but as was managed back in 2018. And there's no new technologies. Kind of the challenge in my industry is that new technologies take literally decades to bring to market, and they often fail. They never really get through that regulatory phase because everything we do is really approved by the EPA, and then it goes through the state, you know, and the Guide to Lakes and Ponds, the GIR, and ultimately it gets approved for us to use that. And there's literally nothing. So phosphorus using aluminum, there's some lanthanum-based products and things that are kind of in the works, but they're not available to us. And then for fanwort specifically, there's only 2 herbicides that are approved. You know, we consider mechanical, but it spreads through fragmentation. You consider benthic mats, but it kills all vegetation, so it's completely non-selective. You consider divers, it's just, you know, you've got dash crews out there when there's recreation, they're out there for days, right? And it's, you know, not going to provide carryover control. So you consider all that, you land on that herbicide. There's only 2 that work on fanwort, so there's Sonar, which is fluridone, which we use, and then there's Clipper, kind of given the proximity to Lake Cochituic, and Clipper's a contact herbicides, which just kind of burns back the biomass. It's non-selective, whereas Sonar is extremely selective at, you know, roughly 8 parts per billion with a B. So really nothing's changed. You know, I guess, you know, I think great point on a COC with ongoing maintenance. We've had quite a few commissions doing that lately, kind of just allowing for maintenance with regular reporting. I think regardless, you know, we, you know, last year, hopefully Amy can attest, I think she was out of the office. So I let Justine and Jamie know, you know, when we were doing work, there's water quality involved with the project we plan on keeping up. We're using that data to make management decisions, which kind of just confirm what we're doing. And then a year-end report every year, and we issue pretty detailed reports with, you know, photos and things like that, recommendations. So I open it up to any questions or comments.
So just so the commission's aware, the only ongoing condition relative to management in this order right now is manual hand pulling of non-native and invasive vegetation for maintenance purposes shall not require additional filing. So it's only manual hand pulling of invasives right now. That's what the order allows for ongoing.
What have they been doing? These chemical treatments in them?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, very, very select. So that's approved. I think Amy's,
No, it is
Amy's
approved, but I'm
mentioning
saying-
ongoing.
I'm saying ongoing,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
beyond, so it's very limiting right now. So, I don't know, would we need to amend this or modify this order to add a condition, and then we can,
Well,
the
the clock's ticking,
COC?
because whatever it is we have to do before the, expires on the 24th of May. So we, 'cause
Yes.
we can't amend anything.
No,
It-
it's, I'm sorry, August. I'm sorry, did I say May?
Was it in your report?
I might have thought May.
I think you
maybe,
said,
but-
I think you said May.
Yeah, it gets, there was the COVID tolling, right, so 462 days, the clock was
Yeah.
paused. It gets
August,
confusing.
But-
Yeah,
August
so-
2020.
A little bit more time,
So we have a little more time.
even better, yeah.
Okay, good, plenty of time.
Yep.
Yes, and I guess that's where my brain was going, is that it's more than simply O&M allowing them to do it perpetually and giving us reports, but I think we all should sort of suggest that, should require that they inform us
Oh, yeah.
if they want to change their plan on any given year.
Absolutely.
Because it's the process of weed control and aquatic, nuisance
Right.
control
Yep.
that we're really permitting.
Right.
Now, they may come in under an extended order, extended O&M plan and propose a chemical that we may not want them to use. And that's where the rub is here. So, but right now, what they're proposing, I don't see that as being a problem. If the technology doesn't change for
Yeah,
several years, we're
there's
probably...
nothing even really in the pipeline, honestly, so it's, you know, and everything we're doing is working well. I think that's kind of the point, right, is last year, especially, you know, it was just a perfect storm for cyanobacteria blooms and lake closures. You know, you see just countless lakes closed all summer long. So we did a phosphorus sample during our May survey, which was part of a suite, which, you know, we'll continue to do regardless of what happens. But phosphorus came back at right above 50 parts per billion. We try to keep phosphorus below like 25 parts per billion, right? It's probably combination of internal loading just through, nutrients recycling within the water body from the sediments. The watershed is enormous, which that airport thing, right? You're going on all sorts of other people's properties. It's a whole different can of worms. And so internally, alum works really well at binding that phosphorus and stripping it from the water column. And so lo and behold, we did two things, right? We surveyed monthly, and then we did algae samples monthly. So there was some cyanobacteria. I think it was the July sample, if you look back at the year-end report, at about 17,000 cells per milliliter, right? So that's regulated by DPH. So 70,000 cells is really that threshold where they shut down water bodies. So we were well below that. So ultimately, we weren't shut down. So the alum worked really well. We did not need any algicide, which is approved. But it was all based on monitoring, sampling. The phosphorus data warranted the alum. So it's really all based on kind of that survey at the beginning of the season, that water quality, and then regular monitoring monthly, which we do, so.
So you're the reason we had less shutdown days in the pond last year.
I'd like to think, I think,
Got my money's worth a
and
little
last
bit
year, right, what you had was the perfect storm, because if you think about algae growth, aquatic weed growth, invasives, it's very simple, right? It's like growing your grass, right? It's water, which is a pond, it has it. It's sunlight, and last year, despite all the rain, which we'll get to, there was all that sunlight penetration, all that heat, humidity, really high water temperatures, really high air temperatures, and on top of that, you had all that rain loading all those nutrients. So you had just all of it, and that's why all these lakes that have never had problems were having problems. But I'd like to think, yes, that just execution-wise, that program was really effective, and when executed well, it's still the right fit.
So why can't we issue another 5-year permit, and if there's any change to the conditions that are existing right now, they notify the Conservation Commission?
Because you can only extend a permit. Our bylaw is very restricted, but the state law also has an absolute.
So I guess, I'm no lawyer by any means. I guess my thought, right, because I know Amy brought up that concern to James, who works with me. I guess my thought, it was issued as 5, probably because it's a different type of project, right? It's a maintenance project, so that's not an extension. And then COVID is by no means an extension. It was a pause in the clock. So I look at it, and I'm looking at a WPA 7 form, which is the original OOC, which has never been extended. So I look at it, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's been a while for sure, but it's never actually been extended. There's never been the WPA 5 extension. I mean, Amy's the regulator. She probably knows better than me, but that's the way I see it from a legal standpoint. And I think the Wetlands Protection Act itself doesn't limit extensions. It would be a town bylaw that would supersede it. We had some in Charlton last year that the agent was like, I think you got to refile. And we had just taken over that project, and we looked and we're like, yeah, these are from 1984. I think that's a great idea, right? So, and things have changed since '84.
It just becomes an administrative question. I mean, I would hate to give a wink and a nod on our bylaw that allows a maximum number of extensions for it.
Right.
So I'd rather find the right way to do it. And honestly, it's less onerous to simply make it an ongoing perpetual condition.
Right, then worry.
And then periodically report to us. And then as the science changes, they're allowed to come in and ask us to consider a new process. And we can just simply incorporate that into their plan. And that's clean.
Right.
I think it's clean.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's honestly probably easier too. And I mean, we notify conservation commissions, whether it's Amy or Justine or anybody else or any of the other commissions, we notify them anyways. So we're already doing reports, we're already doing notifications, we're already getting a DEP permit. So we're doing all those things anyways, so it's.
So what do we need?
So,
Motion?
Well,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. So if we allow these conditions ongoing in perpetuity, what if for some reason 10 years from now we don't want, even though chemicals aren't illegal, we don't want them used, and then they're legally allowed to be used?
Well, I think what we should do is modify the order of conditions to speak to this certificate of compliance with the O&M and the parameters around which we're going to allow it to just go, and maybe there's a life to it, a maximum of 10 years, I don't know, but I'm just throwing it out there, you know what I mean? Where, yeah, you'll get these, you'll get to do this for 10 years under this certificate of compliance and the O&M, but you're gonna have to come back after that, and, you know, we're gonna have to revisit it under a new application. It's, you know,
Yeah.
Middle of the road, yeah.
I don't know, it's just.
I had similar concerns about if a new invasive species were to establish itself that couldn't be treated under the approved methods
true.
that we have ongoing, then how would we handle that with a full new application?
that's
Or
a
would
good
we
point.
be able to have some sort of wiggle room within the O&M plan going forward, or the,
That's a good-
whatever we
Yeah,
have in
no, that's
perpetuity?
a good point, too.
Modification request?
Yeah, I think
Can you get a modification, because at that point, the order would have expired.
Would be
Yeah.
closed.
And closed.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with that even, right, just if we have a 3-year order of conditions, we, you know, these invasives spread rampantly, right? And so you've got all these other, you know, there's no milfoil in Stevens Pond, right? And, you know, Eurasian milfoil, variable milfoil, water chestnut is another big one that's in
Yeah.
the area that we
It
manage,
is
you
in
know,
the
in
area.
Billerica, and we manage it in Tewksbury, so it's around, right? And we deal with that just sometimes in just short-term orders that we see something, and I think what I generally find, and I don't, you know, the challenge in Mass is that if the Wetlands Protection Act gets interpreted differently, what I typically find with commissions, and I don't know whether it's right or not, but this is what I see, is if, say, herbicides are approved under the order, usually they would allow for a minor change. If it was, oh, well, this product doesn't control that, we want to add that product. If it's like a purely mechanical or purely manual and all of a sudden you want to add herbicides, then that's
That's a
either an
different
amendment
story.
or a new filing. And usually a minor change is pretty easy, right? Even administrative changes, things like that. But I think this OOC does cover a lot because we do have dash, we do have manual removal, we do have some herbicides on there. I think as it sits right now, what we have is still the best plan because there's nothing else really.
But Marissa's point is, her question was a very good one. So you guys, everybody's doing the right thing. You come in, you say, look, you know, we have a more effective chemical we'd like to use because we have this new invasive that we're looking to attack, and it's proven to be, you have all of the evidence, but maybe we don't have a stomach for that.
Yep.
Do we have the authority to deny a change to the O&M plan? That's in essence, that's your question, right? We don't approve of that chemical. So now what? No, I guess maybe cooperatively you come back and we have a discussion, you come
Yeah,
back.
I mean, I guess my thought is and again, you know, I'm by no means the conservation expert, but the OOC has very specific things that are approved in terms of herbicides and techniques and things like that. So if it were an O&M plan, if it's stuck to those things, then I think if it's something different, then it should go in front of you, right? So it basically is, this is your O&M plan, it follows this, which is applicable now, was previously approved. Any changes in this, I think should go back to the commission regardless for further approval.
Joe, instead of talking about this for the next 5 hours,
Yep.
why can't we have, renew the permit, if there's any changes to what we have on file, if they say they want to put whatever, uranium in the lake, she can,
Works.
well, at least be able to see where the water is at night.
She's
Say,
not
yeah.
really worried about it.
I hope not.
You know, if something red flags her, I mean, because I'm not a chemist, and I know he is, but you know,
That's Jack.
Jack, yeah, I know, I went that way. They, why are we doing all this, talking about all those chemicals and changes and stuff? That's what we have these people for. So leave it the way it is. If there's any changes to what we have now,
The crux of this is it's about to expire and they'll have no permit to do anything unless we come up with something.
Right,
That's what, and we have now, we've determined it's August, not May.
right.
So we get some time
We
to
got
deal
some
with this.
time.
We got some time to deal
Yeah.
with this.
Or they just refile.
okay, so
I mean, I'm just saying, if you run out of options, just refile before the
Yeah.
expiration date.
True, but I think we have just an opportunity just to modify the
If we-
order, add a
If-
condition
if
about
we can
O&M.
modify it, I'm totally with that.
Yep.
But I'm just saying, if you run out of aces,
Yeah, no, I get
fill
it.
out a new form.
just the main thing that we want is, we want to know what chemicals they're putting in the water.
Yeah,
Yeah, your
and to
means-
that
Aside from
end,
pulling weeds,
would it make sense, now you had mentioned that you control other invasives in different towns in Massachusetts, and you might use different chemicals to do that. Would it make sense if we do a modification or even a resubmittal to put together a schedule of invasive and the treatment chemical, even though they may not all apply?
Based on the possibility that
And
they
the
might,
possibility
they might
to-
bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That if we establish a bloom, this is how we're gonna do
Yeah.
it. I mean, would that be
Yeah,
an easy
well-
thing for you to do?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be impossible, there's just a million different scenarios, you know what I mean?
Well,
And even,
maybe-
say, milfoil, there's 7 different products for milfoil. Yeah, I mean, if, I think that's doable, if that's the decision. I mean, I think the other thing we see a lot, so we just had one in,
And that way, if, I just don't wanna lose my train of thought here, is, to Marissa's point, if one of those chemicals does get blackballed by the government somehow, you know, then it's an impact to our existing order of conditions, and we can deal specifically with the issue, the chemical in question, and deal with it very
So you
tangibly.
I mean, you're a licensed
yeah.
herbicide applicator. I mean, if it's blackballed, you've got
Well,
requirements to meet.
Yeah,
You
so
can't
there's
apply
two,
that stuff.
there's 2 things really, right? So we're licensed commercial applicators, and then the second thing is we have to get the BRP WMO4 permit. So that basically just looks and says, do you have conservation approval? Where you want to treat, are the products that you want to use approved, you know, in Massachusetts and by the EPA, and are the rates you want to use them at consistent with the product label? So that's your cross-check anyways. And so a condition, I think, of the OOC now, and even if it isn't, we do it anyway, but Amy gets a copy of that permit on an annual basis that says, you know, this is what's on the permit. Yeah, I mean, I think they're all good ideas. I think they're all on the table. We just had one in Norton, Massachusetts that was kind of similar, and he's like, you know, why are we extending this? Just, you know, it's maintenance, and they issued a COC with ongoing maintenance, and kind of those big conditions were basically like a work plan, and then at the end of the year, it's a year-end report with, this is what we did, here's recommendations for next year, and any changes and why. And then at that point, you know, I don't know what would happen if there was major changes and they weren't in favor of them, I just don't know, but it basically calls for us to call out any changes if they are necessary in that, you know, in that. So they're all ideas, you know?
So I think the marching orders would be the applicant comes back with a request for a modification with a O&M, and then I can draft up the corresponding condition that we would plug into the COC.
The applicant's the town itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so,
I'm sure that we can help them
yeah,
get the right words in there.
yeah.
Depending
that
on
make
how we do
sense?
on Grosvenor Street.
For everybody? Okay.
So would that be a COC request with,
No, it would be a modification to the order first.
like an informal not like an amendment?
No, right,
Okay.
right. And then, you know, would present an O&M,
Okay,
and then I would craft the new condition that would correspond, and then that would be the new order. And then, once, you know, you'd go for your COC, and then we just plug that into the COC
okay.
as
I think I get it,
ongoing.
Yeah.
So,
I think we should get Christine and Amy hip boots and let them pick the weeds.
I heard that,
I
So
didn't
that everybody
hear.
at home.
yeah. So, anyway, so is that a good path forward?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Perfect.
We'll do it that way.
Okay.
All right, so we'll just reconnect.
This is just
Okay,
discussion,
yeah, we'll
no
talk to you
vote.
this week, and then we'll make
Okay.
sure we get you everything you need, and we'll go from
Okay.
there. Perfect.
Only
All right.
Awesome.
discussion.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous. Because I wanted to do a half an hour.